Thank you for all being here today. I want to specifically thank the members of the Santa Clara PAC who have spent days putting together this process. The PAC endorsed 2 years ago candidates that all fortunately were able to win their election. We're proud of that. The purpose of our PAC is to support candidates that we feel best represents the value of many businesses in the better Santa Clara area. These values include seeking individuals with different backgrounds and ethnicity. Last year we approached the Hispanic, Black, and Vietnamese canvassers looking for possible candidates. We did not get the interest we had hoped, and we were not able to find candidates interested in serving the city through an elected position. In this case, we have Rod Diridon, who's running for the city auditor and clerk. From this experience of not being able to attract other possible candidates, we decided that we were going to add an educational portion to our presentation and endorsements. We felt by streaming these interviews, we'd be able to educate and interest future candidates for a good council position. The difficult times the city is facing, it's become more important to have individuals with business backgrounds to help make the right short and long-term decisions. For the candidates that we will interview today, and Rod's lucky enough not to be opposed, it is not intended to make this process difficult. Rather, we are hoping to make you aware of the problems and issues that face the city, specifically that affect business. Not all candidates decided to be interviewed through this process. To those that did not, we wish them well for other seats. If you do receive our endorsements because we best feel you represent the best business of Santa Clara, for those who do not receive the endorsement, we want you to know that we appreciate your efforts and applaud the facts you're involved. If you're elected, endorsed or not, we look forward to working with you. It's important to note the long history of the city and business in Santa Clara. It's one of mutual respect and common goals for the good of all Santa Clarans. We're relatively new to endorsing, and we want the process to be transparent. We want to provide the voters with information about the process and decisions we make. I wish to congratulate all of that chose to run and involve themselves with the City of Santa Clara, a decision you never regret. And before we begin, this presentation is going to be a little bit different with Rod since he's unopposed and he's not in a position necessarily where all the policies are being made. We'd like to know a little bit more about what the city clerk does, what his history is, and ideas he has for the future. So I'll turn it over to Rod.
Thank you very much for the time.
Yes.
Well, let me start first by answering your question with regards to what the city clerk's office does. Many people don't realize the huge opportunities they have to be engaged in both the political process and also the process of governance through the city clerk's office. The Santa Clara Weekly recently termed the city clerks as your chief democracy officers, which is actually kind of a nice title that we hope to earn as a profession. But you as Santa Clarans, if you're interested in being involved in city or municipal affairs, or if you have a reason to interact with the city clerk's office will likely be your first point of contact. And that's in a number of ways. If you're interested in the goings-on of the city council, the city clerk's office is responsible for putting together the agendas, putting together all the reports, making sure that those are done in a manner which is consistent, posting those online, posting those then also in packets that go to each one of the libraries in addition to the city council members and the members of the executive management team, and making sure that those council meetings are held in a fair manner where the public knows what will be on the agenda and has access to that information. Following the council meetings, of course, the city clerk's office is responsible for keeping the public record. We do so in a manner that's fair and unbiased, and Mr. Topkin had mentioned before that many of the policies that are normally discussed during these interviews won't be asked at the city clerk's office. That's important that the clerk's office not become involved in the setting of city policy, primarily to avoid the appearance of impropriety or that there may be a bias in the manner in which we keep the public record. So of course we don't do that. We do keep the public record in a manner that's fair and unbiased. And we also keep not just the minutes that any member of the public can go back and see, but we also keep the reports and anything that's gone to the city council and archive those. So if you have a desire to go back and see not just what the motion was that the council made, but go back and see the actual documents that went along with it, you can get those as well. Of course, in today's digital age, we don't stop just at paper. We also archive now permanently city council meetings on a DVD format, so they're digital and can be kept forever, so that if you want to go back and not just see what was in the minutes and what was in the report, but what was actually said that drive the council discussion, you can do that as well. That's on what we'll think of as kind of the community engagement city council side. There are a number of things that involve the public more directly. For example, if you have a desire to serve on a board or a commission, the city clerk's office would be the place that you would go to get a list of the board and commissions and to be placed on the mailing list to know when there are openings on those boards and commissions so that you have an opportunity to apply and to serve. Additionally, if you were to want to run for the city council or the chief of police or the city clerk's office, our office would be where you would come first to get information about the process for filing to run for office, and next to complete the paperwork, your nomination papers, your the Code of Fair Campaign Practices, your ballot statement, and all the other things that go along with running for office. We would be your first interface to make sure that that happens properly at the municipal level. And with that, let me stop and see if you guys have any questions, and then we can go on and talk more about the specifics of the office if you'd like.
I do have a question, Rod, and that is city auditor. What does that mean? I know you have external auditors, but what does the city auditor do?
It's much like it was when you were on the city council, and of course, the city council appoints the city auditor, and the city clerk is directly elected, same as it was then. And thank you for the lead-in. It's a good question. There are two types of basic audits that happen in the city. You have external auditors that come in and make sure that on a grander scale, the city is being operated effectively. Those audits relate to anything from bond ratings to the use of public funds and things like that. The actual city auditor that is housed in the city clerk's office, and of course I serve that dual role, we play the role of making sure that every dime that is spent by the public is checked to make sure that it is a valid and proper use of those funds. So we make sure that the warrants that are being requested to be paid have been reviewed and authorized by two people at the department level before it comes to the city clerk's office and is approved to have a check cut. We approve travel reimbursements to make sure that the reimbursements were valid travel that was approved by the appropriate person, and that the money was spent on valid uses so that it was spent in the manner that it was meant to be, not for liquor or for some other things that are inappropriate for the use of public funds. We make sure also that if somebody has gone to travel, that they spend money only within the allotted amount per year, or sorry, per day or per meal, and those are set by statute in the city. And then finally, we audit all of the purchase cards, so that anybody who's using a city credit card to purchase something on behalf of the city is doing so in a manner that was audited by the department head and is a correct, valid use of public funds. So you know that the money that's being spent out of the city of Santa Clara is being double checked, not just at the department level, but at the city auditor's level in a central manner. And it's important that it's checked so many times, especially at the city clerk's office and the city auditor's office, primarily as a preventative measure, in that the actual quality control is going to occur at the department level, where a department knows what's appropriate to be spent and how it's appropriate to be spent. But they know that they've got to do it right, because when it comes to us, if it wasn't appropriate, we're going to have questions about it, and we're going to kick it back to them. Or we're going to ask them why the money was spent in this manner. So it's a very good, just double check on behalf of the public to make sure that all of our money is being spent wisely. Does that answer your question, Warren?
Yes, it does, very much. Miles, you have a question?
I actually have a couple of questions, Ron. One, I think that you probably interface with the Department of Finance, since you're handling most of the audits internally. And do you interface with the external auditors as well?
We do. When the external auditors come in, they and we actually interface with every department where it comes to auditing, not just the Department of Finance,
okay,
but with every one of the departments. And when the external auditors come through, they want to primarily vet our practices. They want to make sure that what we're doing is something that's patent, that there aren't abilities for graft or loopholes that people can fall into, and that we have a good separation of powers in the clerk's office. So, for example, one of the things that they always want to know is the clerk's office does the check run. And they want to make sure that whoever is getting the check run from the Department of Finance and running those checks is different than the person who's auditing that there were authorization signatures for all those checks. So that even within the clerk's office, we have double checks with regards to how the data is used and to prevent check stock from being misused.
Thank you. Yeah. Also, do these auditors evaluate the financial solvency of the city?
The external auditors would. We, as an internal audit function, don't have that prerogative.
So, the external auditors
Yes, the external auditors do. They
Okay.
provide an annual audit, which is provided to the city council each year.
Okay. And in the last audit, effective June 30, has that audit been completed yet?
I don't know if it has or not.
Okay. But it is available, and it would show the financial stability of the city.
Correct. Now, usually the audits are available in the December, January timeframe following the close of the fiscal year. So I'm thinking that if you're talking about the fiscal year that just closed in June, it likely that it's called the CAF, or Comprehensive Annual Financial Report, probably wouldn't be done yet. But you can get that if you can get it for previous years if you contact the clerk's office, so you can see how we did for the previous fiscal year. And then as soon as it's available, it of course will be posted on a city council agenda and posted online at that point.
Okay.
Well, Ron, good to see you, and thanks for coming in. And
Mr. Von Reis,
congratulations on not being opposed. That's excellent. Just on one of your questions that you answered on number 2, you talked about saving taxpayer dollars.
Got it.
Can you expand on that a little bit more and say what are some ways that you see in your position of seeing all the bills and all the stuff that come through there and all the things that you're auditing?
Sure.
Where are some ways in which the city can also find ways to save money other than cutting payroll or staff people?
Let me say first that there were 3 items that I talked about. The first was providing stability and accountability. The second was saving taxpayers' dollars, and the third was fostering good government. And we'll talk about the other 2 at some point, either during the Q&A period here or during closing. With regards to saving taxpayers' dollars, though, the primary function that we do is through the city audit function, and that is, again, making sure that people know internally at City Hall, if they're going to authorize something to be paid, they better check to make sure it was a correct authorization. They need to make sure that the numbers all matched. They need to make sure that the timing was right for the bill. They need to make sure of a number of things internally before it makes it to us, because we're going to double check all that. So that provides some review so that even if somebody externally from the city were to try and buffalo somebody into paying a bill that was inappropriate, or to have some goofy accounting, let's say, that the city clerk's office would play some role in being a partner in finding that for the city. So that's a good role. Beyond that, though, I like to talk about the role that the city clerk plays as a department head. And as an example, a number of years ago, we had the city council was considering placing an item on the ballot for consideration by the voters. It was going to be an initiative, and we got an estimate with regards to the amount of money that would cost from the registrar of voters. And that, of course, went into the public discussion about how much it would cost to place the item on the ballot. And I looked at the costs, then I looked at the cost in relation to what it had cost us in previous years for elections, just to say, well, how much does it cost now? Are costs going up? Are they going down on what it was? And it was dramatically lower. So I asked the city or the county registrar's office, I'd like to be able to explain how the costs were lower if I'm asked. And they said, well, the cost shouldn't be lower, the cost should be higher. I said, well, this is how much we paid last time we did that, and this is how much you're asking us to pay now. And they said, oh my gosh, we forgot to factor something into the algorithm that we used to pay for or to give you the cost estimate. And in that type of role, as the city clerk's office, I was fortunate to be able to discover what would have been an unfunded liability, in that if we had gone forward with the election, we would have had to pay that money regardless of whether or not the estimate that we had been given was correct. So that's one way. Another way is a few years ago, we went through and figured out a way to manage our agenda process in a manner that was more effective. And so we have saved a couple of $1,000 there a year just by being able to more effectively use technology to interface with the agenda cycle. So we're always looking at ways, like you guys all are as private business people, to say, I've got to practice, this is what I have to get done, how can I get it done most effectively at the highest quality for the least amount of money? So there's not just an auditor role, but a department head role.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
On that side of the table, Brandon, did you have a question?
Yes, sir. A couple questions. Sure. Rod, good having you here today.
Pleasure.
Let me start with, does Santa Clara have like an inventory of assets that are publicly available for people to see?
The city does have, well, let's see. They've got a list of properties,
Okay.
and they've got different lists of types of assets. But if you have a specific type of asset that you're looking for, the city clerk's office can help you find the right place to go and look to get the information. I should share with you, the city clerk's office is also responsible as the primary contact for Public Records Act requests. And if you want a piece of information as any member of the public from the city of Santa Clara, you can contact us and say, you don't even have to say it's a PRA, but you can say it's a Public Records Act request, or just say I'd like the information. And we will help you to find the correct department to talk to if we don't have the information. If we have the information, we'll just provide it for you. And make sure that, try and provide a liaison between you and that department to make sure that your question gets asked. Now, there are some requirements there. For example, the city doesn't generate new reports for you. So if you had come through and you had something which was going to take staff time, then we couldn't direct them to spend staff time. That's the prerogative of the city manager. But if we've got the report, we can help you find it. So if you want to find an asset, you come give me a call and we'll help you find whether or not we've got it.
Fair enough. Have you ever calculated the savings to outsource different departments?
No, that would be more of a city manager function. The city clerk's office is a department of, let's see, 5 full-time folks and 4 as-needed folks. So there isn't a lot of bandwidth there for outsourcing.
A lot of free. Okay.
But that would be a good question for city council members.
Fair enough. One last question: if our backs are against the wall, things really go bad, as the auditor, what areas do you think we could cut?
That's again one that would have to be left to the city manager's office.
All right. Fair enough.
I know where I would cut for my department if we had to do so. Right. And our department is a unique one in that the bulk of what we do is mandated by law. And it's either mandated by law or it's required by best practice. So it would be very difficult for us to say, we're just going to stop filling Public Records Act requests. And next time Carolyn Shuck calls and asks us something, we're going to tell her no. We have to. We're mandated to do so. So from my point of view, it's fairly easy. If we have to cut, we have to cut staff. And if that's the case, then we have to look at things that are not mandated and setting the public's expectations that when those services are required, it's going to take quite a bit more time.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Yep.
Lou, do you have a question?
One quick one. Is the city clerk's office involved in the ethic voting program that Santa Clara runs?
Absolutely.
Can you tell us a little about it?
Yeah, the city clerk's office is one of the co-leads in the city's vote ethics program. And if you're not aware in the public, in fact, you guys, I'm sure, all aware of this, the city has now, I think it's going into its 12th year of its overall ethics programs and its 10th year of the vote ethics program. And this is a state, national, and international award-winning program. And it's additionally received not just the Helen Putnam Prize, but also the Helen Putnam Grand Prize, which is kind of the gold standard for government in the state of California. And what we try and do is engage voters so that they know basic things with regards to running for office. Most of you, for example, are involved in politics by the virtue of the fact that you're on this board and it's one of your avocations or hobbies. But many people don't realize that you can look at each piece of literature and on it, it'll have printed who sent it, who paid for it. And that you can tell as much by the context of who paid for a piece of mail as you can by what the piece of mail says. A lot of people don't realize that slate cards, for example, are something that many people just pay to be on. So you can have cards that relate to a political party or ideology, such as being environmental or business friendly or anything like that that is in the public and political dialogue. And the name of the slate card doesn't necessarily connote that that person has been vetted to whether or not their ideals match that slate card. It's simply something that you pay money to be on. Some of them are. Some of them, if they're put out actually by the party or by the Chamber of Commerce or by the Sierra Club or somebody like that, then it's a valid slate card where somebody has been vetted. But in many cases it's not. And it's important for the public when they get these pieces of direct mail first to read them. And people often view direct mail that they get as simply another piece of junk mail. But it's not. In this case, it's a candidate who has worked very hard to fundraise, often from friends and family, to be able to get out their message in the form of direct mail to tell you as voters what they think. And it's important for you to take the time, 1, to read the piece, and 2, look at the context of who paid for it so you know whether or not it's credible. And that's one example of what the vote ethics program does to be able to engage the public to be more educated as they cast their vote. We will never tell somebody how to vote, but we will help them to vote in a manner that more effectively reflects their own unique political ideology. And I'll say one more thing, which is that one of the most effective elements of the vote ethics program is the final word forum. And this is something which you've all seen before. This is a forum which is held the Monday night before the Tuesday election. It's televised on cable channel 15, and it's an ability for candidates to deal with any last-minute hit pieces or any pieces of misleading or inappropriate campaign conduct. so that you as a voter, as you see that barrage of pieces that hit your mailbox in the last few weeks of the campaign, can tune in from 7 to 9 o'clock on, I guess that'll be Monday, November the 5th, to be able to say, okay, what was truthful and what wasn't. And that is a hugely important thing where it comes, one, to candidates being able to have a right to say, hey, I was hit, and this is what my point of view was. Another, though, is so that a candidate, as they're considering how to hold each other accountable, they'll stop and they'll say, okay, is the criticism that I'm making here of my opponent truthful, and is it in context? We don't ask people to be nice. Certainly people do things during a political campaign that they should hold each other accountable for. That robust dialogue is something that's an important part of the democratic process. But they should do so in a manner that is honest and not misleading to the public. So again, truthful and in context. And that is one of the most valuable things that if I were to recommend anybody to do would be to tune into that forum. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Rod. I want to say that this is very informative, and it helps to understand the election process in Santa Clara and the important role that the clerk's office plays. And I appreciate you taking the time to come out and talk to us today.
You got it. May I make one final comment in closing?
You make as many comments as you'd like.
Up to 5 minutes. My comments in general are with regards to, not to you guys so much as the public, and it is that if you are not registered to vote yet, please register to vote. You have up until, let me get the date so we're absolutely clear here. You will have up until October 22nd to register to vote. You can get a voter registration card from the city clerk's office, from most city offices, or directly from the registrar of voters. You also have up until October 30th to request a vote-by-mail ballot. So if you're registered to vote and you're not going to be in town, or you simply think you'll be too busy that day, please request a vote-by-mail ballot. In fact, you can request to be a permanent vote-by-mail voter if you call the registrar's office. And they're at 299-VOTE, 408-299-VOTE, and they can put you on that roll. And that is a much more convenient way to be able to cast your vote at your leisure and put it in the mail. Of course, they need to receive your ballot by the close of the polls, so be sure and put it in the mail a couple of days ahead of time so that it makes it to them in time, or it makes it to the registrar's office in time to do so. And the next is that in addition to that final word form that we talked about, please be sure and tune into the candidate forum for the city council candidates, and I believe that's going to be on the 18th. The 18th is next Tuesday, correct? Yes. Yes, so that's going to be on the 18th from 7 to 9 o'clock. It'll be the city council chambers, and is also televised from 7 to 9 o'clock. And that's a great way to get to know candidates in general. The League of Women Smart Voters website, www.smartvoter.org, is a great resource for being able to go and get more information about candidates. And of course, the Final Word Forum, which is also live in the council chambers that you're welcome to attend, and you can also view online from 7 to 9 o'clock that night. So please take the time to get together, talk with your neighbors, figure out where your own ideology is, and vote in a manner that best reflects that. As a final statement, let me explain to you why it is so important. Our annual budget is roughly $550 million. Over one 4-year term, a city council member will help set budget priorities for $2.2 billion worth of your tax money. What they do is important. So remember, vote. Thanks.
Thank you, Rod. Great job.
Guys, pleasure to see you.
That will conclude our interview.